Let's say there's somebody out there who's listening to this, right? Who this has happened to. They haven't done anything yet. They're thinking about it. Can you paint a realistic picture of what that process is going to look like for a potential victim?
So obviously, you have two avenues to explore. One is the criminal avenue, one is the civil avenue. And I always tell people it's complex, both from a legal perspective with the statute of limitations issues and a lot of other issues of whether or not there's liability that attaches. I always invite people to just call our office and run the scenario by us because both civilly, we can help you obviously with filing a civil lawsuit, but because of my experience as a former prosecutor, my detective's experience in law enforcement, we have a lot of background in knowing and how to deal with the law enforcement side of it as well. So we're able to give advice on how to deal with making a police report, where to make the police report, who to go to, what to say if you get some pushback and some resistance, and we kind of help them along. Or if they make an effort, a reasonable effort, and they still can't seem to get any traction, we will send a victim advocate help them defend. So my advice would be to contact someone like my office or someone who also does specializes in this area of practice that
Mm.
understands and knows both the civil and the criminal side of it, and run that scenario by them. They can guide you on what liability the person would have civilly,
Yeah.
what potential liability they would have criminally,
Hmm.
and how to go about making the various reports and the pros and cons of each one. I mean, there's some pros and cons of criminal, there's some pros and cons of civil. A lot of times when people do make a criminal report, I always tell people to be a little cautious with regard to your timing because having been a prosecutor, I still remember when I was prosecuting cases that I didn't really like when civil attorneys got involved while my case was still pending. And there's reason for that. If you charge a crime against an individual for a sexual assault and you have a civil attorney who also comes in and files a civil lawsuit, well, number one, your civil lawsuit will probably be stayed because that person has constitutional rights not to necessarily give any information that would incriminate themselves. So the civil case oftentimes is put on a stay while the criminal case is pending. So there's not much you can do on the civil side. But what makes it really bad for the prosecuting attorney, the criminal prosecuting attorney, is that the defense attorney for the defendant, for the perpetrator, will always ask the survivor, the victim, well, isn't it true, even before my client was arrested or after he was arrested, you went and hired a civil lawyer. You're after money, aren't you? You're going to lie, you're going to exaggerate because the end goal for you is to get some money out of them in a civil lawsuit. So they
Absolutely.
make the case about money
Money.
when it's really about justice and accountability. So I always tell clients, look, you can't pursue both. But if there's a criminal case pending and you have sufficient time with the statute of limitations, let that criminal case go. Let it run without any civil action. Because that way you take away that defense